So with OpenDock and Cyberdog, Apple will deliver the best way of integrating internet access into a personal computer.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're looking at Apple's so rotten that they practically spoiled the whole bunch, not to mention the company's stock value.
In this case, we'll draw our frog, of which we're going to dissect its brain.
Number 30, the I in iOS 11. From iMacs to iPods to iPhones to iPads, one letter has defined the Apple brand since 1998. It's I, by the way. This made it all the more ironic when iOS 11 received a glitchy update in November 2017.
It changes the letter I every time you type it, and you've probably seen messages and social media posts with a letter A and a question mark.
As many attempted to type an uppercase I, a capital A appeared followed by a Unicode symbol. This would be inexcusable with any of the alphabet's 26 letters, but if one should work above all others, on an Apple product no less, it's I.
Whenever you type the letter I, it autocorrects it to the letter A with this symbol next to it.
This wasn't the operating system's only hiccup, with Adam Clark Estes of Gizmodo saying the update, quote, turned his phone into a bug-infested carcass of its former self. Yet this particular bug put the I in incompetence, even if it was only temporary.
Even Apple isn't immune to it. See, that one's too good. We got to give props to Jeremy Burge for that one.
Number 29, Cylinder, aka Trash Can Mac Pro. You may spend hundreds or thousands of dollars on the latest Apple product. With technology constantly evolving though, that shiny new toy will eventually wind up in the junk drawer, at a garage sale, or even in the trash. Critics who think Apple products are overpriced garbage had a field day with the revamped Mac Pro in December 2013. Noticing the cylinder shape and aluminum aesthetic, it was unofficially dubbed the Trash Can Mac Pro.
Can't innovate anymore, my ass.
While some employees would come to embrace the name, the Trash Can received further criticism for its limited capabilities.
It delivers so much more performance, capabilities, and expansion than anything we've made.
Apple acknowledged that the Trash Can was a misfire, but it took 6 years for the Mac Pro to receive an upgrade, which switched back to the classic cheese grater design.
This is the new Mac Pro, and it's incredible!
Number 28, iPod Socks. How far will Apple go to squeeze a few extra pennies out of their loyal followers? The company inadvertently answered this question in 2004 when Steve Jobs unveiled what he called a, quote, revolutionary new product. Socks for your iPod, originally priced at $29 a pack.
Today, we're introducing a revolutionary new product for your iPod. Socks.
We could buy multiple packs of actual socks for that much, one of which could be used for our iPod. Of course, we wouldn't put our iPod in footwear because that would be ridiculous, much like this product.
They keep your iPod warm on cold days, they protect it, and they give you a little more personality.
Regardless, the socks stuck around until 2012, became pricey collector's items, and were somewhat revived with the AirPod beanies. While this needless accessory might have been popular for a time, they are remembered as one of Apple's weirdest products and most shameless cash grabs.
And they're going to go on sale by mid-November for $29.
Number 27, Butterfly Keyboard. If you were a Mac user between 2015 and 2019, you'll be familiar with the Butterfly Keyboard, which got its nickname from a two-sided switch that resembled the insect's wings. It was also thinner than Apple's past keyboards. While perhaps not as heavy, the Butterfly keyboard was more likely to collect dust and be susceptible to damage.
There's so little room under it that it can cause the whole thing to get stuck.
Most notably, the Butterfly keyboard struggled to serve its core function, with many reporting that certain characters repeated and sometimes failed to type.
Some keys don't register, some keys it registers twice so you get a double letter, sometimes the keys get stuck.
Apple offered free repairs, but this wasn't enough to satisfy some customers. More than one class action lawsuit was brought against Apple, which settled for $50 million in 2022. By this point, the Butterfly keyboard had been phased out, clipping its wings for good.
Users who had to replace or repair their keyboards may get payouts ranging from $50 to $395.
Number 26, Firewire. Introduced in 1999, IEEE 1394, or Firewire, was seen as Apple's answer to USB ports.
Today, we are officially rolling out Firewire as part of our product line.
Firewire was touted for reportedly being faster than USB, although some general consumers didn't see the difference. While Firewire ports were incorporated into Apple products, third parties would have to seek licenses if they wanted to include them. Few leapt at the chance, as most consumers were accustomed to USB anyway.
Firewire is not just a point-to-point connection. It's a bus, and it's a really intelligent bus.
It was especially hard for Firewire to compete without support from Intel, which helped put USB on the map. Although Firewire was a player for nearly a decade, Steve Jobs admitted defeat in 2008. The IEEE 1394 interface still technically exists, but Apple has since moved on to Thunderbolt, which it developed with Intel. Number 25. MobileMe. Apple entered the 21st century with iTools, which offered online services like web page building and data storage. Best of all, Mac users could access iTools for free until 2002. iTools was rebranded as .Mac, implementing a subscription model. While the price upset various users, it was a smoother transition than MobileMe's introduction in 2008.
MobileMe, we can all get push email, contacts, and calendars right to our devices.
Replacing .Mac, MobileMe immediately faced technical problems as users struggled to sign up for $99 annually. Upon overcoming that hurdle, they were met with numerous syncing and server issues.
So this is MobileMe. Again, it's amazing to believe that this is a Web 2.0 applications.
As angry as users were, few were more infuriated than Steve Jobs, who reportedly told the MobileMe team that they, quote, tarnished Apple's reputation. iCloud ushered in a new era towards the end of 2011, while MobileMe went defunct in 2012.
You might ask, why should I believe them? They're the ones that brought me MobileMe.
Number 24. Batterygate settlement. Most users probably would have held on to their older Apple devices if it weren't for one thing: battery life. Many avoid iOS updates, fearing they'll intentionally slow down devices to render them obsolete and force them to purchase new ones.
Many owners believe it was just a ploy to nudge them to buy newer, faster model phones.
Apple claims this isn't the case, arguing that updates are designed to prevent aging batteries from shutting down.
The company says they did so only to fix problems in batteries and processors.
Nevertheless, Apple faced a class action lawsuit from over 3 million unsatisfied users. After 6 years in court, Apple agreed to pay up to $500 million to customers who experienced battery performance issues on certain products before December 2017. Despite paying up, Apple released a statement saying, quote, "The settlement is not an admission of liability, wrongdoing, or fault on the part of Apple," which denies the allegations against it.
Lawyers are saying that because over 3 million people did file a claim before the deadline, you could be looking at between $65 and $90 per person.
Number 23. EWorld. It's funny to think that Apple once lived in the shadow of AOL, formerly known as America Online. Looking to compete with AOL's online services, Apple launched eWorld in June 1994.
Apple launched a new online service called eWorld, featuring an especially friendly interface modeled around a kind of electronic village.
Of course, Apple licensed AOL's tech, but eWorld took a unique approach with a display that resembled a virtual city. The post office represented email, the community center was for chat rooms, etc. While the presentation was creative, the service cost $8.95 per month, with additional hourly fees.
According to Apple, the real-world metaphor is meant to bring order to the chaos that usually results from a glut of information providers.
Apple did little to promote the expensive service, which only had around 150,000 users when it shut down in March 1996. Meanwhile, AOL had about 5 million users, and it only became more dominant with Instant Messenger's launch in 1997.
You get all that with America Online?
Yeah, you can read Business Week online before it hits the newsstand.
Number 22. Apple Cyberdog. Apple made a little robotic dog? Nope. Cyberdog was far less exciting and adorable than it sounds.
We recently introduced a new technology which we call Cyberdog. Cyberdog is an integrated internet application suite.
Getting its name from a New Yorker cartoon turned meme, Cyberdog was an internet suite developed through the Apple-owned OpenDoc. Cyberdog fell short of its competitors, using far more memory than ideal.
Once I find a site that I like, go to the Cyberdog menu, and of course Cyberdog knows nothing about Dragnet.
Adding to the inconvenience, you could only view documents if the application was compatible with OpenDoc's file format. Not long after Cyberdog 2 was released in 1996, Steve Jobs returned to Apple. This spelled the end of OpenDoc, with Cyberdog inevitably following in April 1997. That same year, Apple entered a deal with Microsoft to make Internet Explorer the Mac's default browser. Apple went on to develop Safari, while Cyberdog remains a Wayback Machine relic.
It's called Safari, and it is a turbo browser for Mac OS X.
Number 21, EMate 300. We'll cover the Apple Newton in greater detail soon enough, but we wanted to highlight an especially curious addition to that defunct series. The EMate 300 stood out with a green exterior and clamshell design.
There is no on-off switch with the Apple EMate. You simply flip up the lid and the system is automatically on.
While it had a touchscreen like other Newton products, the EMate was the brand's only device with a traditional keyboard. The technology was innovative and the $799 price was reasonable.
And it will give me guesses as to what I thought the word was supposed to be.
For whatever reason though, Apple limited this nifty device to the education market. Never reaching the mainstream, the EMate essentially fell through the cracks, with Apple not even revealing its sales figures. It didn't help that the EMate debuted in 1997, 1 year before it would meet the same fate as its Newton brethren.
EMate 300. Is it any wonder it has a handle?
Number 20, the PowerBook 5300.
They're using our own satellites against us.
Introduced in August of 1995, this laptop was practically a movie star, most famously appearing in Independence Day, which tied into Apple's The Power to Save the World campaign.
When you've got just 28 minutes to save the entire planet.
The clock is ticking.
You better hope you got the right computer.
1 month after that blockbuster debuted, the PowerBook 5300 was discontinued. The laptop didn't wipe out any aliens, but multiple units caught fire, one burning down a Chinese factory. In addition to the recalls and plummeting stock, the PowerBook 5300 wasn't helped by its price. The cheapest model sold for $2,300, while the top-end version cost $6,800. That's about $4,600 and $13,700 today. Considering that you can buy a modern MacBook Pro for somewhere between $1,300 and a little over $3,000, it's not surprising the PowerBook 5300 went up in flames. Number 19, the iPhone 6's bendgate.
They are the best iPhones we've ever done.
The iPhone 6 was met with several criticisms at launch, from performance issues to accusations of the product ripping off hair. The complaint that gained the most attention was the iPhone's tendency to bend. We're not just talking about users purposely putting pressure on their iPhones. The product could reportedly curve in one's pocket if they were wearing tight pants. Shortly after introducing the iPhone 6, Apple argued that they received only 9 complaints about its flexibility.
Is there a chance the track could bend? Not on your life, my Hindu friend.
Most consumers would agree that's 9 too many. Amid a lawsuit regarding touchscreen problems, it was revealed that Apple knew the latest iPhone was between 3.3 and 7.2 times more inclined to bend than the previous version. Is this an iPhone or a Betty Spaghetti doll? Number 18, Macintosh TV. While Apple TV has seen great success in recent years, the company's initial venture into home entertainment left consumers changing the channel. Hitting the scene in 1993, Macintosh TV was a hybrid device that served as a television and computer. With streaming becoming the norm a couple of decades later, the device was ahead of the curve. It was too ambitious for the time, however. In addition to limited graphical capabilities and slow performance, you couldn't use the computer and TV simultaneously.
You would press a keyboard shortcut, you can assign your own keyboard shortcut, and it would fade out to the TV mode and then fade back into the desktop.
Throw in a price tag of just over $2,000, and it just made more sense for consumers to buy 2 separate devices. Only 10,000 Macintosh TVs would be manufactured during its roughly 5 months on the market. Number 17, Macintosh Portable. Apple's laptops have come a long way since the Macintosh Portable. That said, there was nowhere to go but up. You thought the PowerBook 5300 was overpriced? With the hard drive, Macintosh Portable launched at $7,300, or more than $17,000 today.
His international business is organized around a Macintosh network. Now with the Macintosh Portable, his office can go with him around the world.
Apple was nonetheless confident that they would sell 50,000 devices by the end of its first year. It became clear that wouldn't happen with just 10,000 sold during the first quarter. Aside from being too costly, this portable device was deemed too big and too heavy. The Macintosh Portable didn't compensate in performance, with people criticizing the display and battery life. After 7 months, Apple lowered the price by $1,000, but the laptop barely lasted another year on the market. Number 16, iPod HiFi.
One of the keys is right on the top. We've got a place to plug in your iPod. We've got a universal iPod dock built right into the top of it.
This speaker system goes to show that an accessory should not be as expensive as the main attraction. In 2006, you could buy a 60-gig iPod with video for $349. At that same price, you could purchase an iPod HiFi. Consumers with only $349 to spend naturally went with the iPod, as the speaker system was useless without the latter.
These kinds of products, $800 and up, a lot of them cost over $1,000. And we're delivering audio quality that is absolutely competitive.
Even if you could afford both, most people listen to their iPods on the go. The iPod HiFi had handles, but it wasn't exactly convenient to carry around. While the iPod HiFi was well-received tech-wise, the average consumer wasn't going to spend so much on a device that's really only good for parties. Thus, it lasted just over a year and a half before being discontinued. Number 15, AirPower axed. Some Apple products crash and burn. AirPower burned before it even had a chance to crash. The elevator pitch was enticing. Need to charge your iPhone, Apple Watch, and AirPods at the same time? No need to find multiple power outlets. With AirPower, you could charge all three at once. As convenient as this sounded, consumers knew something was off when AirPower missed its scheduled 2018 release. By March 2019, Apple claimed that AirPower couldn't meet their, quote, high standards. More specifically, experts believe that AirPower was canceled due to compatibility issues and the charging coils leading to overheating. Third parties nonetheless tried to replicate what AirPower promised. Apple also had more luck with the MagSafe charger in 2020. Number 14, Apple teams with U2. On more than one occasion, Apple has banked on their consumer base being U2 fans. Corresponding with the band's 2004 album How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb, Apple released the iPod U2 Special Edition.
This is the U2 iPod. It is gorgeous.
The product came complete with the band's signatures and a red click wheel for some reason. We guess that's cool if you're a U2 diehard, but for everyone else, it was hardly worth paying an extra $50. 10 years later, 500 million iTunes users found that Apple dropped U2's Songs of Innocence album into their libraries for free. Again, a nice gift if you love U2, but many were just annoyed, feeling that the band was forcing their music on them. Bono even apologized, saying, quote, the self-promotion was, quote, a little noisy.
But do they not know they've already got it? But they haven't got the vinyl. Okay.
Number 13, Copeland canceled. No, we didn't say Copland like the 1997 crime drama starring Sylvester Stallone. Pronounced Copeland, this operating system got its name from composer Aaron Copeland. Conceived as a follow-up to System 7 and a competitor for Windows 95, Copeland, or System 8, was to be Apple's most ambitious OS yet. So ambitious that it was delayed multiple times and amassed a budget of $250 million per year. Between the money being spent, impatient executives, and conflicting visions, Copeland was canceled after 2 years in development. This led to Apple acquiring Next and bringing back Steve Jobs, turning a massive failure into an eventual success with Mac OS 8. Number 12, Power Mac G4 Cube. Although Jobs got Apple back on track, he didn't always have the best instincts. Nowhere was this more apparent than with the Power Mac G4 Cube, which Jobs championed.
There's also a slot-load DVD drive, but where is it, you ask?
For whatever reason, tech giants had an obsession with cubes in the early 2000s. A year before Nintendo released the GameCube, Apple introduced this cubed computer. While the design was generally praised, it was the only redeeming factor. Once again, the price was too extravagant at $1,799. The tech didn't vindicate the cost with its limited power, selling a disappointing 150,000 units. Jobs threw in the towel, and the G4 Cube disappeared after barely a year. Still, the design was sleek enough for the computer to be displayed at the Museum of Modern Art. Number 11, 20th Anniversary Macintosh. To commemorate Apple's 20th anniversary, the company produced a limited edition computer for early 1997. The product went by a few different names, including Spartacus, Smoke and Mirrors, and Pomona.
There are some things in life that capture one's soul, like design that goes beyond the ordinary.
It was generally known as TAM, an abbreviation for 20th Anniversary Mac. And being an Apple product, it was reasonably priced, for the 1%. The other 99% had trouble coming up with the $7,499 retail price, which is more than $14,000 today. Instead of thanking Apple users for 2 decades of loyal patronage, they teased them with a computer they would never be able to afford. Steve Jobs wasn't a fan of TAM either. When the time came for the newly reinstated Jobs to clean house, TAM was among the first things to go.
We're pushing design extremely aggressively as we close the millennium.
Number 10, the iPhone 7's missing headphone jack.
It makes all the things you do with your iPhone better.
Changes come at a hefty price. In the build-up for the release of the iPhone 7, rumors were circulating that Apple planned to ditch the analog headphone jack. Obviously, customers were not happy. But Apple wasn't swayed by the petitions or criticism. The company dumped the jack in favor of the Lightning port, meaning customers could not listen to music through Apple's EarPods and charge the phone at the same time. While Apple's marketing chief Phil Schiller called the move courageous, the decision was largely motivated by a want to free up space for extra tech.
But from the start, we designed Lightning to be a great digital audio connector.
Number 9, the launch of Final Cut Pro 10.
I can see my entire timeline.
A brand's name can make or break a product. Apple's Final Cut Pro is an important video editing program that's been employed by many Hollywood films. In 2011, Apple released Final Cut Pro 10, a program that was a complete departure from the previously released Final Cut Pro 7. Besides being conceptually different, the 10 could not import work from its predecessor and lacked some of its features. While Final Cut Pro 10 is a great program on its own terms, Apple could have better prepared existing Final Cut users for what proved to be an incredibly abrupt change.
But it's great!
Number 8, Apple USB mouse, also known as the hockey puck.
People don't like it.
The late 90s were a turbulent time for Apple. While they showed a willingness to innovate, quite a few of their products failed to hit the mark. At one point, the company managed to even get the mouse wrong. Apple's so-called hockey puck looks really cool, but the compliments pretty much end there. The USB mouse's perfectly circular shape made it hard to control, as there was no intuitive way to know whether the user was holding the mouse straight. The puck's lifespan was ultimately short-lived, as Apple went back to the drawing board and introduced the Apple Pro mouse.
Some people think that this is the worst mouse in the world. We'd like to change that.
Number 7, the iPhone 4's reception issues.
We're not perfect. We know that. You know that.
Just 3 days after launch, the iPhone 4 sold over 1.7 million units. Unfortunately, not everyone was happy with their purchase. Many users complained about the iPhone's weak reception signal, a problem caused by gripping the phone's lower left edge. Apple's initial response left a lot to be desired, as they merely suggested that consumers should not touch the affected area while in a call, or to buy a $30 bumper case. After a handful of frustrated customers took Apple to court over the issue, the company finally decided to take some sort of action and opted to supply cases free of charge.
Okay, great. Let's give everybody a case.
Number 6, the Apple Lisa. Technological advancements are great, but they also need to be affordable. In the early 80s, Apple announced the Lisa, an innovative computer that was home to the first ever graphical user interface and featured an operating system with protected memory. While these were important advancements for the industry, Lisa's processor struggled with the workload, and in comparison with its contemporaries felt slow. Worse still, it was priced at nearly $10,000, around $25,000 in today's money. All of this amounted to pathetic sales figures, and the Lisa was discontinued less than 4 years after its launch.
Amazing? Not really.
Number 5. The Newton. As always, Apple was looking to push the envelope with the announcement of their personal digital assistant. To that end, the company not only gave us the term PDA, but also brought handwriting recognition to the format. Kinda. In theory, the device would allow users to take notes, manage their schedule, and organize contacts. But most importantly, it would also translate handwriting to text. Except, at launch, this ambitious feature barely worked, a reality that practically killed the Newton before it really had a chance.
I'd say the Newton is really peace of mind, right in the palm of your hand.
Number 4. The early days of Apple Maps.
Beautiful, beautiful maps.
Unwilling to allow Google Maps to own the market, Apple released their own version in 2012. While things eventually improved, Apple Maps got off to such a rocky start that it required the company's CEO to publicly apologize. The application's biggest issues included misspelled place names, an inability to differentiate cities that shared names, out-of-date information about stores and places of interest, and completely wrong locations, all of which were pretty damning problems for a product marketed on its accuracy. Apple would eventually fix over 2 million errors in the app.
We have this great traffic view, so it's easy to see where the incidents are.
Number 3. The Apple Pippen.
Apple is betting that the TV will be the preferred viewing device with a new approach to home computing called Pippen.
When you think of classic 90s gaming, Apple doesn't exactly spring to mind. The Pippen technology platform was licensed to Bondi Company Limited, which advertised its Bondi Pippen model as a gaming console. However, they sold less than 50,000 units, so it isn't that surprising. Depending on your point of view, the system was either an overpriced console or a cheap computer. Stateside, the system offered just 18 titles, but it did offer players the opportunity to connect to the internet, or as it was known at the time, the net. Unfortunately, very few people had an internet connection up to the demands of online gaming, making the Pippen a pretty useless purchase and underwhelming experience. Number 2. The Apple III.
Apple, the personal computer.
Complete failures are quite rare, but Apple found a way to do the improbable. Replacing the Apple II, the Apple III was meant to push the company into the business sector. Instead, this faulty device led to near financial ruin. Partially due to Steve Jobs' inflexible demands and instructions to not include a cooling fan, this device suffered from overheating and would break down after a couple of hours of use. This was particularly problematic since it was targeted towards businesses rather than hobbyists and enthusiasts. Software for the Apple III was also scarce, and the computer got dismissal reviews right out of the gate. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The Backfiring clone licensing.
It's a whole new world for Apple these days. Mac clones, a new OS on the horizon, fierce competition.
With Microsoft dominating the PC market by licensing out their operating system, Apple tried to close the gap by doing the same thing with their Macintosh. The idea was to provide a cheaper means for consumers to get used to Apple's system, but the clones were often more advanced than the Macintosh computers. Unlike Microsoft, who were mainly into software, Apple's decision just resulted in an oversaturated market that threatened to leave them in the dust. With Motorola preparing to launch their Mac-based G3-powered StarMax 6000, Apple opted to stop the licensing program to save themselves.
I went to the clone vendors and I said, guys, we're going to go broke.
What are your thoughts on these bad apples? Let us know in the comments.
When you get 4 bars on there, what you're really getting is a 2-bar signal.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.